I, Donald John Trump,
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of
President of the United States.
Presidential inaugurations are the most public display of American democracy, a demonstration of the peaceful transfer of power. And like the nation itself, a lot has changed since our first commander-in-chief took the oath in 1789. While the 20th Amendment says that the president must take the oath of office before noon on January 20th, everything else you see when the president is inaugurated is unnecessary, but tradition. The first inauguration took place in New York City, the temporary capital, where George Washington started the trend of placing the right hand on a Bible. By 1801, the ceremony moved to the new capital of Washington, where Thomas Jefferson took office. Up until 1933, inauguration was on March 4th, to give the incoming president time to plan his presidency, but Congress changed the date to January 20th to prevent an extended lame duck presidency and allow the president-elect to respond more quickly to national challenges. Apart from the ceremony, the traditions of inaugural parades to inaugural balls have also held strong. Since 1901, the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies has been responsible for planning presidential inaugurations. This committee is run by a bipartisan group of lawmakers, 3 from each party, and they are in charge of everything that takes place on Capitol Hill. But since 1841, the president-elect has also formed his own presidential inaugural committee, which pretty much plans everything else. In normal circumstances, DC would see hundreds of thousands of inauguration revelers swarm the city. But with the coronavirus pandemic, President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration will look different.
They are very well rehearsed on how to essentially digitally take care of these kinds of things. And so you'll see a virtual concert, a virtual ceremony where Americans will be able to join from all over the country, very different from what we would normally be seeing for an inauguration.
Our resident expert, transition reporter Megan Casilla, points out,
they're urging members of the public not to be there. They're turning most of the other events virtual, kind of akin to what they did with the Democratic National Convention.
Even though Biden's inauguration is planned to be almost completely virtual, they're still accepting donations to fund the event.
That funding is pretty pivotal to putting on all of these events. So to putting on a virtual parade, you might not have the same cost that you would have if that was taking place in DC on Pennsylvania Avenue, but you do have costs such as the technology, paying for the live streaming.
Many of the companies who donate have a tradition of making donations to presidential inaugurations, no matter which party is in power. We're talking about donors in the $1 Million Club. Collectively, over the past 3 presidencies, we've seen over $280 million raised for inaugurations alone. This year, Biden is accepting up to $1 million in corporate donations. So far, those donors include companies like Google, Microsoft, Verizon, and a lot of other tech giants. And this big money tends to be incentives and political influence for donors, a way to try to integrate yourself with an incoming president. If we take a look back at some of the past inaugural contributions, well, it's possible that big bucks can land a seat at the table with the new administration.
One of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing I'm not showing up.
Trump is not the first president in U.S. history to skip his successor's inauguration, but in the modern era, it's pretty unprecedented.
There's been a lot of talk over the past several weeks about how a cornerstone of American democracy is the peaceful transfer of power. It's sending a real symbol, of course, that maybe President Trump is not respecting these traditions and by extension, then not respecting the Constitution and the inauguration and the transfer of power as well.